Hey guys, so this is a video I've wanted to make for some time now, and I figured now is as good a time as any. And this video is about the top 10 most valuable Dragon Ball Figuarts. Now, when I say most valuable, yes, a big portion of that is a monetary value. However, I also want to take into consideration the level of completeness a figure may add to someone's collection, or just the overall rarity of a figure in its current day status. With that said, I wanted to limit the amount of exclusive figures on this list. When I'm saying exclusive, I mean, the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive ones particularly. Because, let's face it, they'd all be taking up the spots on this list. However, there are a few that I've kept on here for certain reasons. Alright, now that we know what we're talking about, let's get into it. Alright, so I'm just throwing this one in here quick because I wrote this video out yesterday and I just thought, why the heck didn't I include this guy? So, Krillin, he's definitely going to be on this list because we have not seen a updated Krillin figure for some time, just like Piccolo. And if you didn't get the chance to jump into this line early enough to grab him, then you've missed out on arguably one of the core characters of the Dragon Ball Z, or even Dragon Ball Super franchise, one of the Z Fighters guys. You gotta have this guy in your lineup to make a complete Z Fighter collection, and that's why I'm considering him one of the most valuable Figuarts figures. So, officially coming in at number 10, and again, I know the numbers are a bit skewed now that I threw in Krillin, but I'm just as surprised as anyone else that I've put this figure on here, because previously I put him on my top 5 worst 5 Figuarts list, and it's Whis. Now, the reason he's on this list is that he's a web exclusive first and foremost, which means Tamashii simply cannot re-release him in the future. Secondly, I was thinking, and unless Whis undergoes some sort of dramatic transformation or swaps outfits at some point, I feel he's unlikely to see an additional release anytime soon. Now, lastly, the final reason I say he's on the MVP list, despite my personal view of the figure independently, is that Beerus needs him. Arguably, unless you're just gonna use Beerus to be posed fighting the likes of Goku all the time, you need to pose him with Whis. They're seldom apart in the anime, and it just doesn't feel right having Beerus posed by himself without his teacher / guardian angel. Wouldn't you agree? Alright, at number 9, I've got, for the most part, any of the Cell figures, as they're all an exclusive in some way. I will say, however, I feel the first two are a little bit more valuable than the most recent release, just because it's still possible to see decently priced 2018 Cells floating around. But yeah, he's definitely one of the more valuable figures to have because he's one of the core DBZ villains, and unfortunately was not given a regular release. And because we've seen 3 colorways of him, I don't think we'll be seeing any more releases of him until he gets an upgrade, like some of the other 2.0 figures, or Tamashii decides to give us one of Cell's other forms prior to another Perfect Form Cell release. Okay, so up next is a figure that is not a web exclusive anymore, but ironically was 5 years prior to its release, and that is Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Now, despite the fact that Tamashii can reissue this figure in the future, they have not thus far, despite the recent foray into the Buu saga. And until they do, I feel this figure's initial release still holds a lot of heft behind it. It's a great looking figure overall, with very minor issues here and there compared to current figures being released. And with the volume of figures Tamashii seems to be pumping out these days, I don't see them taking up a slot anytime this year, at least, for another Super Saiyan 3 Goku. If anything, maybe around the holidays? Now, they can go the Sdcc route with this guy as well, but again, I feel like they'd probably do Gogeta or someone else before Super Saiyan 3 Goku, unless they are doing multiple exclusives per year like last year. In a nutshell though, until he's re-released, his price point is pretty hefty, just like his predecessor. Alright, so coming in at number 7, I've got another web exclusive, and that is Golden Frieza. Now, hear me out here before you go off in the comment section. I have Golden Frieza on here because as of now, he's the only representation of this form in Figuarts. And I'm sure we'll see an updated version of him at some point as he's still around in the storyline, but until then, this is the only way you can get some poses from as current as the Broly movie without resorting to the Dragon Stars figure. And of course, the fact that he's a web exclusive puts him above Super Saiyan 3 Goku, but like I said, we're bound to see an update of him in the future, which is why I don't have him higher on this list. Alright, so up next, I have another Goku, and surely not the last one on this list, but it's the Sdcc Kaio-Ken Goku. Now, despite the fact that we've gotten upgraded Goku molds like the Saiyan Rays on Earth figure, this figure has a couple of things in addition to its price tag that make it stand out among some of the most valuable Figuarts. The first is that it has a truly unique colorway to it that is not terrible at all, and it actually has quite a bit magnitude behind its purpose, which is of course the Kaio-Ken. which I imagine we won't be seeing again until they eventually release an Sdcc Super Saiyan Blue Kaio-Ken Goku figure, which might be sooner than we think. But in addition to this, it's also got its own aura effect, and in fact is pretty much the only figure to do so since the original Super Saiyan 3 Goku. So you can see why its aftermarket price tag has skyrocketed since its release, along with being an exclusive. To me, the fact that this is more than a simple palette swap of colors on the actual figure, plus the addition of the color swap on the effect parts, one being an effect the original didn't even come with, makes this a truly valuable figure in its line. Arguably, this could even be placed higher up on this list over time. Alright, so coming in at number 5 on this list, I've got androids 17 and 18. 16 would have been on here too, however, you can still grab 16 for a decent price. But of course, these figures were released as weather exclusives and to this day have not seen any sign of upgrade or re-release. What's more is that a re-release has not been warranted as much of other figures because the initial releases were actually very well done. Coming with a slew of interchangeable faces, hands, and accessories, there wasn't too much else to be desired. However, with this duo's inclusion in the Tournament of Power, I'm sure we'll see an upgrade at some point. But for now, I consider them a very valuable addition to one's collection. The Android Saga, and if you doubt it, go ahead and check the price tags for these guys. It may not give you viral heart disease, but it'll definitely take your heart rate up a few ticks. Okay, so right here is a figure I feel is sorely in need of an upgrade, as I've said plenty of times on this channel, and that is Piccolo with the anime colors, or Sdcc Piccolo. Needless to say, this figure's price tag is also just as crazy as the next Sdcc figure. However, I would go even further as to say it's one of the ones that's actually quite deserving of it. Up till now, we have only the meh looking manga version of Piccolo, which, while isn't the worst figure in the line, is still pretty lackluster. If you've got your hands on this guy here, consider yourself pretty damn lucky. Arguably, you could substitute the Dragon Stars version, but really, it's not even in the same league as this figure. And while you may be wondering why I rank this guy above the android, because he doesn't even come with that much, it's simply because he's a core character. He's a Z fighter, and there is no other way to display anime accuracy than with this figure right here. Okay, so you guys knew he'd be on this list somewhere, right? At number 3, I've got any of the Broly figures, because they're all pretty much exclusives, either web or con. Just like the sheer size of this figure, his price tag has climbed to gargantuan levels as well, especially the OG Broly. Even though we're getting a couple of newer movie Brolys this year, I think it's pretty safe to say they are done with giving us the classic appearance Broly figures, which cement these figures' status as true icons of old DBZ nostalgia. If you've been on the fence about picking one up, I'd say go for it, because I really don't think we'll be seeing any more releases of this guy, in this version anyway. To this day, it is still one of my favorite figures in the line, and it really pioneered the way for abnormally larger figures like Nappa, Boo, and of course the 2019 versions of Broly based on the movie. Alright, so at number 2, I've got the notorious, ever so elusive Goku Black figure. Talk about a system crash. This thing caused so much problems with pre-orders being unfulfilled that its status as one of the hardest to get in your hand figures is still very solid and climbing to this day. You can expect to pay upwards of $200 for this figure, and that's just a baseline starting point if you're lucky. With Black's crazy popularity and the focus on Dragon Ball Super figures, this figure is surely one of the most valuable pieces anyone can have in the collection, only being outshone by the one and only. Yes, that's right, Sdcc Goku. 5 years ago, this guy was the most expensive figure to try and get, and I really don't think that has changed much to this day. Despite the fact that he's one of the oldest figures in the line, with its initial price point being about $35, that's just a small fraction of what you're going to pay to get your hands on him now. This thing embodies everything a Figuarts should be: a posable display piece that has high quality, dense plastic, immaculate detailing, and of course the shading that a lot of us strive to see in current day figures. Alright guys, so there was my take on the top 10 MVP Dragon Ball Figuarts figures. I'm sure there are figures you guys would swap out here and there and than the ones I've chosen for a variety of reasons, and again, these are just my opinions. I hope this time at least I've provided enough detail on why I made the choices that I did, but of course feel free to make your comments down below. I think it'd be really cool if we can, as a channel and as a community, to actually establish a concrete list for 2019 anyways, of the top 10 most valuable figures. Let me know your thoughts, guys, and you guys know I strive to make original content for you guys, so if you enjoy it, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. You know what I always say, may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Peace.